Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and I'm joined by Cathy Erickson, the event producer of the great Iowa Pet Expo that just happened. Cathy, thank you for joining me on this show. I appreciate it.
So great to be here, Justin.
The primary reason I want you here is because puppy mills. We're number one in puppy mills, and not in a great way. So I think the best place to start is probably where no one starts, which is, what is the actual definition of puppy mill? I feel like nobody knows that. But before we get to that, have you subscribed to the Iowa Podcast? I know you're listening, and I really appreciate that. But have you subscribed? This podcast is 100% free. I know there's a little confusion because Apple and some other products have like premium podcast services you can subscribe to that cost you money. That's not us. We don't charge. It's always going to be free to listen to the Iowa Podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Your credit card's not going to be charged. Don't worry about that. Also, make sure to rate this show 5 stars. When you do that, it serves the show up to people like you that have similar interests. And hey, could you just tell your neighbor about the Iowa Podcast? Okay, Cathy, what is a puppy mill? Is there a definition? Is there an organization that sets that definition? What is a puppy mill?
That is a great question. And probably the best way I can explain it is a puppy mill is a scenario where you've got an owner or owners who have set up a business to just breed these puppies, these dogs, over and over again for the puppies. The dogs are often abused. They're often not, they don't get the vet care they need. They live in very poor surroundings. And sometimes they actually use old semis and they just line them with cages and stack all the cages on top of each other. They don't have heat or air conditioning. They're often exposed. And the whole point is to create puppies, because the puppies are the cute, adorable things that will sell well. And right now, we're at a point in society where designer dogs, every doodle you can think of is out there, every cross with a poodle. And people, they like that, and they'll pay money. But what we're trying to do is educate people that there are responsible breeders and there are puppy millers. And there's ways to tell the difference when you're in the buying aspect of it.
Ooh, so we're gonna get into that then. But overall, then it sounds like the big difference is a breeder is humane and treats the animal with respect, and a puppy mill, it's basically an abuse thing. A puppy mill is abusing the animals and not treating them well, and a breeder is treating them well. Is that an oversimplification?
It's not an oversimplification. The real interesting thing, you'll see from a lot of the rescues the phrase adopt, don't shop. I really think that people have a right to a high-end, well-bred animal. I, for instance, own a German Shorthair Pointer. She's an AKC dog. I did not get her for as a matter of fact, I rescued her, but I didn't get her to hunt. But there are people, particularly in Iowa, that are hunters, and they want that great lab to retrieve the ducks, or they want a great pointer to retrieve the pheasants. And frankly, they should have that. Can you train a rescue or a non paper dog to do that? Probably. But if that's something you want and you can find a quality breeder, more power to you.
Can you train a Chihuahua to do it?
Pardon?
Can you train a Chihuahua to do it? That would be a good comic strip, though.
can't train a Chihuahua to do anything, but
that's hilarious. So I want to get into later how to tell the difference. That's a good thing. Obviously absolutely nothing comes to mind with how I would do that. And I'm a dog owner, right? Well, I guess I used to be a dog owner. There's a sad story there. We lost our first dog like this summer, and he was 13. So that was our. That's
a good long life.
It was, and he had. Let me tell you, he had the best life ever. But man, it's really really rough. So naturally, I hear about puppy mills, and it pisses me off a little bit. So Iowa's number one in puppy mills. It didn't used to be that way,
we're actually number one. Actually, Missouri is number one. We are number one in the Department of Ag finding offenses at the mills. So the Department of Ag is actually, involved. They do inspect, but they go in, and right now Iowa has more inspection failures and, more inspection problems than Missouri, and Missouri has more puppy mills. So probably the good way to look at that as well, at least we've got our inspectors out there.
We're enforcing things. That's why we're catching more of it.
We're trying to enforce things, but the sad part about that is that, we know that there's more and more abuse.
So why is Iowa, like, you mentioned earlier that, puppy mills, they don't necessarily have good heat and cool control. And so I'm trying to put my jerk hat on, my awful human hat on. Like, if I was going to do a puppy mill, I probably wouldn't do it in Iowa because I'd lose a lot of dogs. So why don't we see more southern states leading northern states in puppy mill where the climate is warmer? Why do we have so many puppy mills in Iowa? I don't understand.
I think it has a lot to do with the two things: the agricultural side of it. If you have a farm and you have a big barn, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to get caught. The odds of you being discovered is less. The other area that is really high in puppy mills is the Amish areas of Pennsylvania.
Really?
So you've got agriculture people who are trying. Maybe things haven't been that great in the ag world. So you've got ag people who are looking to find another source of revenue. And boom, there's that barn. There's those dogs. They hear about it from somebody else or see it, and the next thing you know, we've got a puppy mill.
So it's like a crime of opportunity, kind of like
a little bit. That's a great way to put it.
We have some barns in rural, hard to reach locations. Therefore, it's easier.
Yep. Missouri. If you've ever been down in Missouri, there's just all kinds of nooks and crannies down there.
Right. Okay. So it's kind of it's just the conditions are right and the topography is right. So I could make some assumptions, right? But I'm not a legal expert. So are puppy mills illegal? Maybe is this an actual illegal activity, or is there some gray area there?
And previously, when I said there's a couple things, the other thing is, where are the laws lax? If you look over at Illinois is also an agricultural state. They're way down the list in the puppy mill problem. Their laws are much tougher. But you come to Iowa, you come to Missouri, and there's a real problem. I've been involved in the legislative days for puppy mill laws that we're trying to get passed. And even laws to make abusing animals, bigger crimes. And the ARL, of course, is very involved in that. And the problem is what's known as the slippery slope. Your big ag companies don't want to have anything to do with these laws. They don't want to see them coming in because they're afraid it's the slippery slope towards problems with cattle and pigs. Okay, but there's a difference. There's a difference between livestock and companion animals. And I've had that conversation with my legislators. I'm like, look, you're the only one that can create those definitions and put them into the Iowa code. That's what we need. We need those definitions put in there. So the large agriculture, we're not going to say, that your cattle, your cows have to be in an air-conditioned barn. We're not going to say that, those laws don't apply to livestock. That's a different world. But if we can protect these companion animals, we'll feel a lot better about it. They shouldn't be treated like livestock.
Okay, so some of these laws aren't clear enough, and this is the hard thing, right? Like some of these laws are too widely applicable, which is why maybe like the Iowa ag community is kind of pushing back on it a little bit. They may be saying like, hey, look, like I've got a dog, I've got pets, and I hate this just as much as you do, but until you make these laws more clear, I cannot support this stuff, because there's obviously a big difference between livestock and like deer or something, and pets in your house. There's obviously a big difference. Like my little dog that I used to have would not have survived for 4 hours out in a very mild winter day, which as cattle have been surviving in mild winter days for thousands of years.
Exactly. And so you've got legislators who are afraid of these laws because they're getting a lot of political donations from these same big ag companies.
Why isn't it as simple as then them, like, why aren't these bills being written more clearly? I mean, it kind of seems like really easy stuff to me. Like
can't get them out of committee. They get introduced, but there's enough power to keep them from coming out of committee. There is an incredible documentary called Dog by Dog. And an Iowa-based organization called Bailing Out Benji is one of the organizations featured in that documentary. And on one hand, the documentary, showcases the puppy mill problem. On the other hand, it also showcases what happened in Missouri when the Missouri voters voted, the entire state, the Missouri voters voted for more stringent laws for people that breed dogs, and those laws were overturned by a huge effort by big ag, and it's just takes you step by step, and how any organizations can come in and push to have the will of the people overturned absolutely escapes me.
Sure. Now, is there, because I've seen some bills, right, that kind of have a nice flowery title on them that look really great. And then, obviously the goal there is a political opposition will put up a really nice bill, try to get their own pork through. And then they'll say, the Flower Act, this act has more flowers everywhere. And people are like, oh, that sounds great. But this idiot voted against the Flower Act because embedded in there is a law that says everyone should get free heroin. You know what I mean? Something, which this is insane, right? But I think you get what I'm kind of getting at. Like, is this a problem in the bill where people are trying to slip things in to get their own agenda, which is why it doesn't get out of committee? Or is it as simple as agriculture just doesn't even want to deal with it? They don't want any laws on animals because they're concerned, full stop, no discussion.
The latter. And
wow,
it is the slippery slope. And I have had legislators here in the state tell me, you know what, our laws are good enough. It's good enough. And there's a lot of us that don't think they are good enough. And there's a lot of, and it's tough. I referred to the Department of Ag. Department of Ag's got a lot to do in the state of Iowa. How many people can they employ? So again, it's sort of like, that's out in the nooks and crannies. Now, they've surfaced a little more because of the internet. If you're on the internet selling puppies, you're a little easier to find than selling them out of the back of your van back in the day.
Right.
So, and it's big business.
Yeah.
It is big business for some of these companies. So
sure.
The internet has revealed a little more. It's helped. It's hurt in some ways because it's, I guess, increased production for some of these facilities, but they're easier to find.
And obviously, I'm not a legal expert in this area, but if there's someone listening to this and you're saying, no, the reason these don't get out of subcommittee, Justin, you dimwit, is because of X. Like, if you're one of those people and you're saying that, I want to hear from you. Like, I want to hear what would compel someone to be against a law that would protect dogs and protect cats, right? Like, I'm more of a dog guy, but, I think all animals should be treated with respect. That's, I hope everyone would agree with that. And so if there's someone out there listening and you're listening to this and you do have a counterpoint, please get in touch with me. This podcast, we give a fair voice to every Iowan, no matter what their perspective is, and I would love to hear from you. So it
would be a great discussion, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be a really good discussion. And I hope deep down inside there are some good reasons for this. I hope that it's just people saying, no, we want to abuse all animals. So that, I hope that's not the perspective. But earlier you were talking.
I think it's less that we want to abuse all animals and more that, well, we don't want any of this applying to livestock. So we're not going to get this started here because there are too many animal rights people who will then want to apply it to, cattle and hogs. And I don't think that's the case. I think that's, and they're the same people, as I've said. It's like, you're the people who are making the laws. Let's have some really concrete definitions.
And is this just in
livestock
Iowa?
And companion.
Is this mostly, I'm assuming this is the Iowa legislature, not national legislatures you've been working with. Okay. So that would explain why Iowa ag would also, that would be another reason why it's different here in Iowa, because we have more agriculture, whereas a southern state or another state somewhere else doesn't even have to deal with this because they don't have that agriculture background. So that does make sense. You were going to tell me earlier, and I said we'd get to this, which is, how can someone tell the difference between, because supply and demand, right? If there's no demand for a puppy mill dog, for example, then puppy mills can't survive and they're going to shut down. So how can we tell the difference? I mean, I'm not Superman. I don't have X-ray vision. So
there's some great ways to tell the difference between a quality breeder and a puppy mill. Quality breeders often wait until they have a list of people who are looking to get a purebred puppy before they breed their dogs. So they know that the dogs have homes. They almost always will have you sign a contract that says, if for any reason you need, life circumstances change, something happens, you cannot take care of this dog, the breeder will take the dog back.
Wow.
They want to know where all those dogs are. They want to know they're well taken care of, and they don't want to see them go into, a shelter when they know that they could place them with a good family. And they will, a quality breeder will always let you come and see the mother, see where the puppies are being raised. Most often, you'll get to go in and you're on a list, and it's like, okay, let's say you're number 3 on the list. The first person gets to come in and gets the, quote, pick of the litter. Then you get your turn, you pick your puppy, and then they let you know about the puppy. You either can come back on, every couple weeks, or they send you some photos. They keep you updated. Here's your vaccination records. Puppy mill people will not let you see the mother. They will not let you see the puppies at an early stage and where they're growing up. They will not let you into the barn or the facility. And if they want to meet you at a parking lot, you're buying a puppy mill puppy.
If it feels like a drug deal, it probably is.
Exactly.
That's funny.
You can ask all day long. You are not going to get to see anything.
So honestly, if it feels shady, it probably is. That's probably a pretty safe assessment. Now, obviously, we'll put all those, we're going to list all those out and put them at iowapodcast.com because we want people to be empowered. How would they, is this like a contract thing with the local, like you said, a breeder will have like, if your financial circumstances change, we're going to take the dog back. Is that like a legal contract, or they have a dog SWAT team and they kick your dog, their door down, and they take the dog back?
No. That is not what I meant at all. What I meant was,
I probably misunderstood.
I don't know. You got this dog, and it's a wonderful dog. But something happened in your life. Your child was stricken with cancer, or you have to, go take care of your ailing parents. Something big, something tragic, and you just can't. Your plate is too full now. People have, sometimes their circumstances change, and the breeders will always tell you, if something happens in your life, and for whatever reason you can't take care of this dog, you call us and we will take the dog.
Oh, got it.
We will make sure it gets another good home.
So it's more of an agreement kind of thing between, if something happens, you need to let us know. Yeah, usually. Okay, got it. That makes a lot more sense. So if Iowans do, if they do feel like they're in the middle of a drug deal and they do see something's off, or is this as simple as see something, say something? And if so, can they report it? Is there a number to call? There's nothing to do. Nothing you can do.
Nope. If you, I remember one day I was up at Cabela's, the one that's on the way to Minneapolis, and here was a bunch of people with a whole bunch of husky puppies just sitting in the parking lot, trying to sell them. That's generally, somebody either A is a very poor breeder, or B is, connected to a puppy mill. And, there is nothing you can do because it's not against the law.
Wow.
It's not against any law.
Now, obviously in that scenario, if it's a private property kind of situation, you could tell the property owner and run them out probably. But outside of that, that's troubling. I had no idea. And obviously until some of those laws change, that's not going to change.
Even at the Pet Expo, we send somebody out every so often just to check the parking lot, because I have had them come to my parking lot.
Oh, wow.
And, in a van with a bunch of puppies and trying to sell them in the parking lot.
Can we publicly shame them?
We certainly can.
I was like, maybe you guys should start a website about, and list out known puppy mill people,
Oh, there is a website.
Oh, there is one.
List. But the general public doesn't quite hasn't gotten their arms around, that it's not okay. And here's what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and you've done a good job illustrating what's going on, and it's troubling for anyone who's had a dog or had a cat. I mean, it's probably troubling for everyone, right? But people who've had a pet, it's probably way more troubling because they have that very personal experience.
Exactly.
So I want to move on to COVID, because I know COVID affected Iowa pet owners specifically, but there was the rumor there for a while. There was some national data, but I'm not sure how this works in Iowa. Did COVID increase dog and pet ownership in the state?
It certainly did. The shelters and the rescues were having adoptions hand over fist. Right now in the United States, 70% of households have a dog or a cat.
Wow.
That's a nice big number. It was down in the lower 60s before COVID. And so we're up to 70%. Now, there have been some reports that, post-COVID, some people going back to work, a little bit of inflation, that they're seeing some more dogs come back. That's also coupled with the time of year right now. There are some shelters that are full, and some of our shelters, some of the breed-specific shelters don't have rescues don't even have a shelter. They just rely on foster homes, and people who are who love the breed, people who are willing to take a dog in and help it become more socialized or get it through maybe some medical issues before it's ready to go back out to be adopted.
Wow.
It's a little tight right now. So there's that, which is always the argument for, please, people, spay and neuter.
Yeah, your dog agrees. Your dog agrees with that, obviously. So COVID drove adoptions and pet ownership up. And now inflation is driving adoptions and pet ownership the other way. So there was a huge demand.
Just post-COVID in some cases where people, got a dog and it was in their household. And, it is, if you don't plan for it, it's a little bit difficult to have a dog that's with you 24/7. Then all of a sudden it's home alone for 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
And that can cause some behavioral problems that in some cases might see that dog getting returned because the owners they don't have the skills to deal with that.
That's kind of crazy. It's amazing. It never ceases to amaze me how people fail to plan ahead for just the most simple things, right? But is this a significant problem in Iowa? Are the ARL and other shelters for dogs and cats, are these things packed to the brim right now, or is it just a slight influx? Do you know?
I think it's more of a slight influx here. Again, it has a little bit to do with the time of year. We're seeing kittens and puppies too. With the ARL, they've really had an onslaught of hoarding situations that they've had to take care of. I think there was another one just yesterday where they found, I want to say it was either 20 or 40 cats in an apartment.
Oh my gosh. That's insane.
So it's, when they have these huge influxes like that, whether it's cats or dogs or sometimes, farm animals, that's tough on the whole system. It takes a village.
Oh,
the ARL is, quite well versed in that. And then, you have Heinz 57 in DeSoto, where they often they often will go to the southern states where the dog population, it's a little bit more warm weather and good old boy attitude. You've got dogs that just are, they're not spayed and neutered and they're reproducing too fast. And there's actually, I call it a pipeline. Every weekend there are transports that are running from southern states to northern states, pulling dogs out of kill shelters in these southern states and bringing them up to shelters that are in the northern states that are not as full, and giving them a chance. And running a transport's really fun. I've done it. It's really fun. The one that I've worked with, you go down to Bethany, Missouri, you pick up your animals and you bring them up to Des Moines, and you meet the next leg and hand them over, and they're taking them up to Minneapolis or Wisconsin.
I guess I've heard about that, but didn't know a lot about it. But basically there are kill shelters in certain areas of the country, and people like yourself are basically relocating pets out of kill zones and into zones where or into facilities where that doesn't happen, is what it sounds like.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And that's weird because, I don't know, what is it about, well, I guess, Missouri doesn't have such good numbers for puppy mills either, but that's where we adopted our dog from, southern Missouri.
A lot of these come from Oklahoma. So they come up through Missouri. That's where the transport that I've been involved with starts. Wow. And I know there's others that start there.
So you mentioned time of year twice. And so you're like, well, this time of the year, what's up with this time of the year? Does this time of the year naturally drive the shelters fuller? And why is that?
It's just the summer season where animals are out, they're running around, they get loose more, they breed, and the population just tends to explode more in our part of the country across the summer.
So it's no different than like people on like college vacation, summer vacation. They're getting out there and having and partying, and the animals do the same thing, basically.
Yeah, we got puppy parties going on all over the place.
That's hilarious. Hopefully, there's no drinking. All right, that's funny. So, now, one of the most important things then is what are the best resources? Because it sounds like there are a few like mines, right? Like to be aware of. Like there's a kind of a pet minefield. There are some more reputable areas to go. There are some areas that aren't so reputable. So what are the good resources, the good local resources, like lost and found resources? Where do Iowans go? Because it's a bit overwhelming, right? Like, how do we find the right breeders? That's like, okay, now that if I actually find one, I know how to vet them because I listened to this show. But where do I start? Are there websites that are endorsed by you? Are there good places to go?
I think both. The Animal Rescue League of Iowa has an incredible amount of information on their site. A. Hines 57. Like I said, in DeSoto, they do a lot of courtesy posts. They have a lost dog site, and then if you are looking to get a dog, obviously if you want to adopt, and one of the things that I think people don't consider is there are a lot of purebred dogs that show up in rescue. If you want to adopt, and I'll use my example again of a German short-hair pointer. Call these organizations and say, hey, can you let me know the next time you get a pointer in? And they'll call you.
Really?
They know you're a pointer person. They will let you know because, not every breed is for every person. And I know somebody who got a Corgi that way. They let somebody at the ARL know. It's like, hey, if you get a Corgi in, could you let me know? And they did, and they got the animal. You have to be, now these are very busy organizations, so checking back would always be a good thing. Then if you're looking for a breeder, utilize your online experience. Get on there and ask all your friends, hey, does anybody know a great pointer breeder? And there's an AKC Des Moines Kennel Club.
Oh wow!
They'd be a great place to call if you want a specific breed. They know all the people that have all the purebred dogs, and that's a great organization. They're always in the Pet Expo with us. What you don't want to do is just go online, type in a poodle and click on the first link that comes up, because you're going to see a lot of links to what look like, huge, wonderful breeders. And here's another tip of the hat. If you're looking at a company, at a business, and they've got, Cocker Spaniels and Basset Hounds and German Shorthair Pointers and okay, stop there. No real quality breeder has, 5 or 6 or 8 different breeds. That means that there's just a whole bunch of pens somewhere and it's not good.
Okay.
Your quality breeders are usually specializing in 1, maybe 2. And like I said, if they don't say to you, if you want a puppy, if they don't say to you what, ask you about your home and very possibly ask you for a reference to your veterinarian, to find out that, yes, you do make sure your dog is vaccinated and you do, take care of them. So that's not unusual from a quality breeder.
Are there more Iowa Pet Expos coming up in the future? Obviously, it might be too late. It's too late for people to subscribe now, but are there more Iowa Pet Expo events coming up? Are there things closer to people's various sides of Iowa? Where's the best place for people to go to learn more information about it?
There is so much great stuff going on in the pet world in Iowa. The Pet Expo is 22 years old, and we are always the third weekend in October, and that's something to plan for annually. There's so much going on. But here in Des Moines right now, we have 2 indoor dog parks. We have Style and Paws Play Place, and we have Paws and Pints that just opened. So the great place to take your dog any time of bad weather, particularly the winter. So many of the breweries now are having yappy hours where, you can bring your dogs to, and this is throughout the state, bring your dogs to the patio. Kinship Brewing in Waukee has its own dog park. There's, all kinds of wonderful fundraisers, which are walks and runs and things you can do with your dog. One of the things we're doing at Great Iowa Pet Expo is starting a blog on the website so we can constantly be talking about these things and sharing it with people. And then, like I mentioned, there's a legislative day I believe it's in February. And, getting involved with that would always be a great thing, even if it's just keeping an eye on it and, calling your legislator. We make it, the people that put that together make it real easy. Here's the link to go find out who your legislator is, and here's what you say.
So Cathy Erickson, Cathy Erickson, event producer of the Great Iowa Pet Expo, and that's greatiowapetexpo.com. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. I really appreciate it.
It was great fun. Thank you for having me.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.